In 2015, John Carpenter said about They Live, it's a documentary, it's not science fiction. The same problem still exists. He qualifies it by saying, I'm a very happy capitalist. I love my country. I love the system that we're in, but not without some restraints, which is a very fair point and a very grown-up thing to say, which to me is good because it sort of tempers the sort of naivety that I think is in They Live a little, which is not his fault. It's just he was born in a very different time.
Yeah, I also saw him, you reminded me, I saw him talking about the fact, he said, I'm very pro-democracy apart from on my film sets and at home with my children when I'm a dictator.
It originated from the story Nada, which was in Eclipse Comics' Alien Encounters by Ray Nelson and artist Bill Ray. John Carpenter read that, responded to it, as at the time he was very angry about the state of Reagan's America.
Did anyone read? It was actually, the comic was based on a short story that Ray Nelson wrote.
I'm getting to that.
Have you read it?
No, but I read the comic.
Oh, you read the comic?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I read the story.
There's massive tits in it, which really put me off. So Nada, or I can't remember what he's called, he goes to the door and his girlfriend answers the door and she's just like two tits and a waist and she's like, oh, come in. I was like, what?
Have you ever read a comic book before? This is not a unique circumstance.
Like, is that normal? Is this a pornographic comic? She's just
a comic for kids.
Just a comic for kids. So he seeks out the source material, which is a short story by Ray Nelson called 8 o'clock in the morning. And in 8 o'clock in the morning, a man wakes up from a hypnotist trance, realises that aliens are controlling our lives, and he's got until 8 o'clock in the morning to solve this problem.
It's really similar, except the aliens are... It's very short. It's only 6 pages long.
Right.
The aliens are lizard cannibals who George takes out one by one. But then he does break into the TV studio, gets on the telly and orders the world to see these aliens and kill them. And then he dies.
Okay.
So there are a lot of similarities.
Weirdly, if you watch They Live and you are a Stephen King fan and you felt it was familiar, Stephen King wrote a short story called The 10 O'Clock People, which is about how people withdrawing from smoking, the chemical imbalance of nicotine in their body causes them to see rich people who are these bat creatures. And it's pretty much exactly like They Live. And Stephen King talks about, he said, this story had one of the shortest gestation periods of any of his pieces. And my question to Stephen King is, was it the 95 minutes it took you to watch They Live?
I thought this might be interesting and fun. You know, like your human brain can't compute like a very big number. So we all know that like the 99% and the 1%. So the most current statistic is the top 1% of households. So a top household is considered one with wealth of 1.2 million euros or more. They own 44% of the world's total wealth, right? But they try and think about billionaires because there's a lot of talk about, you know, obviously no one needs a billion of anything really. But human brains struggle to conceptualize a billion because it sounds like a million. We can sort of deal with a million. If a million seconds is 12 days, a billion seconds is 32 years. Can you believe that, right?
Wow.
And if you saved $100 a day for the rest of your life, it would take you 27,000 years to save $1 billion, right? And my last one is, if you counted to 1 billion, allowing 3 seconds per number with no breaks, because obviously the further up you go, the longer it takes to say the numbers, it would take you 95 years to count to 1 billion with no breaks. How mental is that?
That's a lot.
It's a lot. And Jeff Bezos has got 188 billion of those dollars. So
I'd say that's too much.
So casting of They Live, John Carpenter is a huge wrestling fan. And
He likes wrestling, weed and video games.
yeah, he's all right.
And it's been like that for 20 years. Isn't it? Nearly 20 years ago, we wanted to interview him when I was at Hot Dog magazine. And yeah, his agent just told us he's getting stoned and playing video games and he's really got no interest in talking to anyone. So we were disappointed, but it was like, yeah, that's quite cool. Fair enough. He's done his work.
Yeah.
There's your headline.
John Carpenter said of Roddy Piper, he has life written all over him. He has been hit so many times that he's really broken up. He even walks funny because his pelvis was shattered and his back was wrenched. He's the toughest guy I've ever met. You could run a truck into Roddy and he would still be standing.
And he's lived a life not too dissimilar to the one that John Nada is living before he became a successful wrestler.
He's moved around a lot.
He said when he was a kid he would dumpster dive, which is what John Nada does at one point in this film. Literally go looking for food in dumpsters.
Yeah.
I like the fact he talks about him. He says that he liked Piper's unpolished simplicity and the lack of a larger-than-life movie star charisma. And I do think that really works in this film because it just accelerates this idea of him being this everyman and creates an even bigger gap between him and the aliens. And I don't think he's a bad actor.
But isn't it mad that he picked the most over-the-top, loud wrestler to play an earnest, quiet man. It just complete counter-programming in that decision.
I like the advert where the woman picks up a lump of cheese with a very long fingernail. Did you see that? She's got fake nails on and she just there's a lump of cheese next to her and she just jams the nail into the cheese and puts it in her mouth. It's possibly the most horrifying scene in it because if you know anything about hygiene, it's a fact that it's more hygienic to lick the bowl of a public toilet than it is to bite your fingernails. You just get funnier looks. It is genuinely.
They're very funny, actually. They're very clever satires of those 80s adverts that we all know and remember and love, just with a punchline of each of them that the person you think's really good looking or perfect is actually an alien.
I thought some of them were real.
Then they've done their job.
Yeah, I'm just so not in his mindset at all. I think he's quite innocent, John Carpenter, to make this film and be like, look, adverts. It's I know.
I like that in this scene when he's watching the telly for the first time, he's meeting the other sort of homeless people. We've got the actor George Buck Flower. Are you aware of his work? He's the homeless guy who ends up he's the turncoat. He plays a drifter in this film, and I went through, he plays one of the most famous drifters in film history. We'll get to that in a bit. But I went through his 162 IMDb credits. Yeah. Most of the people he's played don't have names. This is what he's credited as: flasher, drunk, bum, tramp, vagrant, drifter, drunk, bum number one, bum, wino, rich tramp, hobo, homeless man, drunken man, homeless man, bearded man, homeless man, wino. So he had a thing. But he is
Stick
the drunk.
to what you know.
He is the drunk homeless guy in Back to the Future that sees the DeLorean disappear and then come back.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which is probably his most famous role, even though he doesn't really speak.
Crazy drunk driver.
So there is a resistance movement being organised from the church. But before we can find out too much about that, the camp is razed. So there's a book called They Live from 2010 by someone called Jonathan Latham. And he makes a very good point, which is by depicting the homeless of Justiceville as weary and long-suffering, you can only read the destruction of the camp as totalitarian overkill. And I find that a very interesting point because the homeless people in this informal settlement, you are meant to feel they're not feisty, they're not rude, they're depicted as vulnerable, weak, so that you feel bad that when the camp is raised, you don't think, well, they kind of, they had it coming or they were up to no good. And the resistance movement is moved sort of off-site. There's no threat to the aliens from the shelter itself.
For me, just watching that scene where the police trashed the camp, it just felt it was more uncomfortable now watching it than it was when I watched it as a kid, just because I think we've spent the year watching the police on the news using excessive force and a militarised police on the streets dealing with riots. And it just felt like, wow, I felt like I'd seen this on the news.
Yeah.
Yeah. One quick thing. When he takes his sunglasses out of the box and he goes, I'm going to want that box later.
Yeah.
Not a big thinker, isn't John? Because he goes, I'm going to hide the box of sunglasses that I want for later in a full bin that is going to be picked up by a trash machine.
I agree with you.
A trash machine.
Whatever that is. A bin lorry.
Trash machine. Yeah, one of those trash machines.
But also, when the trash machine picks him up later, he's got the only bin lorry ever that's only got paper in it. There's no old eggs or fucking nappies.
He's also in a bin lolly, trash machine and bin lolly, where the driver, for some reason, basically that whole sequence where he gets tipped out of the machine is John Carpenter going, that'll look cool. I've got a great shot for that. Because there's no reason to fill your lorry and then tip it up. You wait until you've got to the dump before
normally,
you tip it up.
I believe
you don't tip it. It's just like, yeah, it looks kind of cool, him sliding out, John, but you didn't need it. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. I was saying to Anne, I kind of would love to see this film for the first time again for this scene. So what was it like the first time you see the world?
Stylistically, I thought it was amazing.
Yeah, it looks cool, doesn't it?
Look, it's so good that it's black and white. I don't know. I understand that it's actually more of a device just to help you move between the worlds. But the fact that it is black and white, initially I was like, I wish the whole film was black and white because it looks so cool. And it is funny as well, like the advert for Come to the Caribbean. And it's just actually Marianne Copulate. I think that's very funny.
Yeah. The best one is the cash in his hand, which just says, this is your God.
Yeah.
That's great.
It's great that it's black and white, but also I was thinking this time, watching watching it, it's almost sad we don't get the colour version, because when you see the behind the scenes pictures and what they used on the poster, they look amazing. That this red, blue and silver that the aliens are coloured with, they look so cool.
Yeah, you see it at the end, but yeah, it would be great to see it throughout. But I think John Carpenter, it was intentional. He was sort of suggesting that the aliens colorized Earth. Like they brought it. I didn't quite understand that, but it is a quote that he said.
Yeah,
so.
I read that.
He becomes a blunt instrument now with shades of his wrestling persona. This is why suddenly you see, this is why you've cast the wrestler, because he's a monster now.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
So then John randomly kidnaps Meg Foster and is a right dick to her. I think she's brilliant in this. And the scene where he's kidnapped her and they've gone back to her house, this scene, and full plaudits to John Carpenter for writing this, because there's an interesting dynamic where he wants Holly to put the glasses on to see what's going on. But because he's forcing her to do it, the point is that your enlightenment must be consensual. Otherwise, it's just the same as what the aliens are doing.
Well, also, it's a great line that stops her just putting the glasses on, because this situation would be solved, at least at this point when you think she's a good guy, if she just put the glasses on. And you're like, well, why doesn't she just put the glasses on? And she says the line, basically she implies that you've got a gun, so if I don't see what you want me to see, I will still see it anyway.
Yeah.
So there's no way of proving that point through the glasses, which is really clever.
Yeah, it is.
What's great about her in this film as well is that you can't read her at any point.
Because of her eyes.
It's never quite clear where she's coming from at any point in this film until the end.
She's certainly not as black and white as Evelyn or Evelyn, rather, from Masters of the Universe, which is what I remember her from.
Exactly.
Also, you do have to love a girl who says to her kidnapper, I'm thirsty, and then comes back with a crisp white wine. I'm like, yes, Holly, I'm fucking thirsty.
But then she smashes it.
She smashes it and then she pushes him out of a fucking window. That's awesome.
Upper body strength does she have? Because she just throws him through that window. I mean, either that or that glass is dangerous. I mean, how many party guests have you lost from them just sort of leaning on the window casually? Hey, thanks for having me.
And he has a huge fight with Frank, who, as I've mentioned, is the only person that's been nice to him. Starts the fight by giving him a paycheck, which I'm not being a horrible capitalist. He didn't really go to work. So he has done you a massive fucking favour, and then proceeds.
I timed it at 5 minutes, 30 seconds. It starts at 56 minutes, 10 and ends at 1 hour, 1 minute and 40 seconds.
I will say I did not enjoy it, but I understand its place. It's there instead of them having sex, is what I would say. Because it forces an intimacy, because the scene after it is the classic, we've had sex, so let's share some secrets, but they're not going to go down that road, so they have a massive fist fight.
I mean, it's interesting. He left 5 pages clear in the script.
Just blank.
Blank.
What? With an arrow saying, go skip to page something. Are you joking?
I'm not joking. He left 5 pages clear in the script and said to his producers, we're going to have a 5-page fight here. Ugh. He dedicated 5 days to shoot it before he had anything written. And then they spent 2 weeks, because he said that's why he hired Roddy Piper. He spent 2 weeks with Roddy Piper and Keith David choreographing it, making sure it had a story. Their inspiration was John Wayne's The Quiet Man. Have you seen The Quiet Man?
No.
There's a great scene where he fights another guy all over town. But what he wanted it to be was like a real fight, not a flashy fight, like, was the thing that Arnie, Seagal, Jean-Claude Van Damme were doing at the end of the 80s. So, and he said he wanted it to mean something between two friends. I think what you mean, you putting it in place of sex.
There are 2 ways of looking at it. First of all, I think the story is good because it goes from just a bit of a fight to a period where it does feel like Keith David, Frank, feels like he's in a fight for his life. It sort of escalates to a point where the look on his face is like, I have to survive this now. And then it goes into the funny zone, and then it sort of carries on. I agree with Vicky, though. The problem with this fight is ultimately there's no jeopardy, because he's not going to kill him. No one's going to die. And so what are we watching it for? For the appreciation of the fight? Yeah, as a kid, I was like, this is brutal. I got bored as a kid, and I got bored again now.
Mm-hmm. I think what's interesting about it is, I don't know, if you put yourself in Frank's position, Frank doesn't want to know. Mm-hmm. He doesn't want to put those sunglasses on because he doesn't want to get involved. He wants to continue with his life, looking after his family, ignorant of what's happening around him. And it's that question that comes back in The Matrix, doesn't it? Would you want to be unplugged.
Right, but once he is, he's like, fucking hell, let's go to work. He doesn't sort of go, I'm really furious now because you've made me wear these glasses. He's sort of, once he's seen it, he's like, thank you, I'm now awake. Personally, to put myself in Frank's position, I'd have just put the fucking glasses on first thing. Like, if he'd gone, I'm going to fight you if you don't put these glasses, I've got the glasses on.
Yeah, it's the same scene as with Holly. If you're going to fight me with your bare hands and kill me, it's the same as a gun. At this point, we're with the resistance and they're kind of tooling up, but they don't have enough and they're aware that they aren't fully equipped to like take on these aliens. Things take a massive left turn. The explosion in the building where they are, I thought was brilliant. Out of nowhere, the thing blows up and it's like, right, okay, it's on. We've got to go and get these aliens. But then I was like, there's a portal that's been opened up by a wristwatch and we're in an underground cavern and then we're at a gala.
See, that's my favourite bit. I really love this.
You see a couple of security guards in this scene downstairs in the tunnel.
Yeah.
They're holding the PKE monitors.
Oh, no, they're Why did you not let her guess? I wanted to know if she'd spotted it. Granted, she hadn't.
I think her reaction.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
It's so cool. It's the one Egon has.
Are they really the real ones?
Yeah.
It's the same prop.
Why? Oh, I love it.
Props do get used over and over again in films.
I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's made me feel really cheered. So where are we? So yeah,
did you spot Al Leong as well?
I didn't spot him. I spotted him in the credits, but I didn't spot him in the film.
Yeah, he's running down a corridor away from an explosion. You barely see him, but he's there.
Classic him.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Roddy Piper's very honest about his acting in this film. Well, he knows he's not an actor. He said he didn't know what he was doing. He was constantly asking them, John Carpenter and Meg Foster and everyone, Keith David, what he should be doing. And he said that this scene, he was thinking of a woman called Lorraine who dumped him and broke his heart. And he gets quite emotional in the commentary talking about this. But he said he wanted to show hurt rather than anger when he shoots her, when he realises that she's betrayed him and the entire human race.
The thing is, though, when he has the scene with the I'm not daddy's little boy and something about a razor blade, he does all right in that.
He's not happy with that either. He's beating himself up big time on the commentary with that, just saying, I didn't know what I was doing. I'm so sorry. You should have made me do it again.
And looking back at it, I wish I could do it again because I think I could do a lot better job of it, but it is what it is.
I thought it was real. What do you want more than real?
Delivery.
Oh, come on, man. I mean, all you need is authenticity. You don't care about perfection.
I think it's okay.
I honestly don't mind him at all in this. I think he's good. He's good.
He reminds me of Dave Bautista when I was on the set of Guardians of the Galaxy, that was his first huge acting job. And he, in between takes, would come over and talk to us. And he was beating himself up as well. He really thought he was ruining the film.
No,
and then you'd watch
that.
the takes and he was fantastic.
Yeah.
But he is gutted in this scene where before everything explodes, he holds up his middle finger and it's sort of quite crooked and bent. It's not like a straight middle finger. And on the commentary said, this, I wish I'd done better. It should have been straight and strong. My last defiance. And bless him, Carpenter's trying to talk him down and says, you've just been shot. You might not have the energy to hold it straight. And it's just a weird interaction.
It happens all the time. It's not as rare as you'd think, actually. And it doesn't mean anything. And I'm not hurt. And we can try again later. I'm sure is what he said.
Look, things turned out a little sour for me today.
Well, you're not the only one.